Right, so today we're going to be learning the last section, units of production. And yesterday we went over double declining. And now for today we are going to be learning about straight line. Straight line is by far the most easiest concept out there. It's widely used because of how easy it is, okay? And then, so again, we're going to be introducing to the same exact 5 components when we're dealing with depreciation, because all methods, no matter what you're looking at, these are the 5 requirements that you need to have in order to do it. So again, we went over units of production. So remember, units of production is based on the number of units that the machine or whatever your fixed asset is can produce. It's not time sensitive. It doesn't matter how old the machine is, as if it reaches its capacity, that is it. Okay? Whereas double declining, right? We're trying to, the way we measure double declining was you're using it so much in the beginning of its life. Okay, so you're trying to depreciate it as fast as you can. Okay, so today when we're and then with the double declining, we understand that it is time sensitive. So if we're clocking it in, or not clocking it in, I'm sorry. If we bought it in the middle of the year, you can't assume that it's going to be depreciated for the entire year. You need to calculate specifically how long has it been in service for the very first year. Okay. So again, it is time sensitive, and sometimes, if not, there could be a possibility where it never reaches its it never reaches its useful life. Okay, so for example, we did a couple examples where it was supposed to give you 5 years. It barely lasts you for 4. Okay, or the most that it did was 4.5, and then that was it. If you're zeroing it out completely, yes, you can, but that means you can extend it for as long as almost beyond its thing. You're never ever going to stop at just 5 years. Okay? And then lastly, we're going to be introducing to you straight line. Straight line is the most easiest concept to understand just because it's easy, and when you solve for one, you pretty much solve for the rest of the entire years. So what I mean by that is when we'll look into the example. And the great thing about this is the whole purpose of straight line depreciation is you're spreading the cost evenly throughout its life. Okay. And then I'm not quite sure if I went over this the last 2 times, but IRS usually only allows or recognizes straight line and double declining. They don't really do units of production. However, there are ways that you can calculate it just for the use of the purpose of creating your financial statements, right? If you want to create your financial statements based on a certain form that requires you to do other calculations, then yes, you are able to do that. But however, if you are trying to just be friendly and whatnot, the safest one is going to be straight line and double declining. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into straight line. So again, the whole purpose of you creating or doing depreciation based on the straight line method is that you're spreading the cost evenly over its entire life of the asset. Okay, so again, you will be seeing similar but not the same formulas have you seen before. So the number one is going to be the depreciation basis. So for the last two depreciations we learned, this one is going to look identical to the first one we learned, which is units of production, because for this one, you need to recognize the cost of the asset, and you need to subtract the salvage value. Okay, so that is one thing that's similar to the units of production. Okay. The second formula I want you to recognize is going to be the depreciation rate. This is going to be 1 over the estimated useful life, okay? But, so this one is similar to the double declining, which we learned yesterday. Except this one, instead of multiplying it by 2, it's just one time. Okay? And then the same thing for the depreciation expense. It's going to be similar to double declining. You're just going to take their basis times the rate. And then all three depreciations will have the same accumulated depreciation as well as the book value. Okay, so those two formulas are constant throughout the entire depreciations that we learned. Okay, all right. So here, straight line, you can see it's as if it's a combination between the two methods that we just learned, but this one is much easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into our first example. So here, record the depreciation for the first year. Okay, so this one, we have an asset. It's a machine. It is going to cost you $15,000. Its salvage value is $2,500, and its useful life is 5 years, and it can produce up to 10,000 units, which we don't care about because we're dealing with straight line. And the date that we put it into service is going to be January 1st. Okay, so what is the depreciation basis this time?
12,500.
That is correct. It's going to be 12,500 because our asset cost is 15,000 minus our salvage value of 2,500, and you're going to get 12,500. All right. So what is the rate? What is the depreciation rate?
Number of years divided by 1.
Other way around, David.
Yeah.
1 divided by
1 divided
5.
by number of
Yes.
years.
1 divided by 5. Which is 20.
Point 2 is correct. Point 2 or
And do you have to leave these in percentage, or can you leave them in
you
decimal?
can leave it in decimal. Reason being is because when you calculate it, you're going to calculate using a decimal, not a percentage. But for looks, percentage is fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and calculate the depreciation expense.
Times the depreciation basis times the rate.
Okay.
I got
2,500.
Depreciation.
And seeing as the first,
Make sure that
I'm sorry, go ahead.
good. 2,500. All right.
And seeing as the first year, you just carry the 2,500 over.
Good.
Because you didn't accumulate anything last year.
Good. And then what is my book value?
The accumulated depreciation minus the original price
Okay, so what is that?
of the asset.
Okay. And what do you get here?
12,500.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, 12,500.
All right. Good. So let's go ahead and do second year. Oh, never mind. I already did it for you. So if I were to do second year, right, all the formulas stay the same. So for my second year, 15,000 minus my 2,500 gives me my 12,500 for my basis. My depreciation rate is 1 over 5, which gives me 20%. And then I'm going to calculate that again, and it's going to give me another 2,500. And so, as you can see, do you see a trend here?
Yeah, the rate's the same.
The rate is the same. What else is the same?
The depreciation basis.
The depreciation basis is the same. Good. And what else is the same?
And the depreciation expense.
That is correct. So that means when I said this earlier, if you solve for one, you pretty much solve the whole thing. Okay? So here, this is the great thing about straight line is because it's a constant number and you're spreading the cost of it evenly throughout the years, that means every year you're going to depreciate it for the same amount every year. And that's what we call spreading the cost evenly throughout its lifetime. As in, the number that you're going to use will not change. Okay? And what you're going to notice here...
And that means I did...
Go ahead.
That means I did my homework all wrong.
That's okay. All right. And then what you're going to notice is key pointers is that your end of your end of the accumulated depreciation out of the end of the 5th year should match your depreciation basis, and your book value should always equal to your salvage value. So just looking at this, isn't this the easiest thing? You only need to do the calculation once. Okay? Now.
No, because now my homework's all wrong.
It's okay, David. We'll go over it together later, okay? In a bit. So again.
I thought I was ahead of the curve, too.
It's okay. I appreciate you trying. So, knowing that if you could solve for the first year, that means everything's going to fall into place. Now, that is assuming if we are depreciating all 12 months, okay? Now, once we move into the depreciating versus what is partial years, that's where you need to calculate more than once. You're going to calculate twice. So in this one, it's pretty simple, straightforward. You solve for one, you got it. Okay. So let's go ahead and journalize the first transaction. So how much depreciation expense did you occur in this journal entry? $2,500. And for this year, for the first year, you're going to what's your accounts?
Depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation.
Good. Yes, for $2,500. Okay. And then for the second year, it's going to be the same exact one, except the year is going to be different. Okay. So every year, what you're going to notice is that your journal will look identical every year. Okay. So yes. Okay, so the first year was same thing as the second year. All right, so see, that was very easy. It went by super quick because we've learned the two other concepts, and this one, you don't need to calculate much. It does it for you. And that is why a lot of businesses prefer to use a straight line because it gets the job done in it really quick. Okay? So here we're looking at straight line partial years. So it's going to be the same concept, except this time we need to recognize that we put the asset into service on the October 18th. So let's look at this problem. So on October 1st, you purchased a machine for $10,000. Its useful life is 5 years, and it has a capacity of 25 to produce 25 units. It has a salvage value of 2,500, and at the end of its life, it has a salvage value of 2,500 at the end of its life. All right, the machine was put into service on October 18. So let's go ahead and fill this information in. So what do we know? If the asset is put in October 18,
It'll be
November, and exactly. Because it fell after the 15th, therefore you need to depreciate it the following month. So we have November and December left. Okay, so 2 months. So let's go ahead and calculate that. How do you calculate the cost of how do you do the depreciation basis, the depreciation rate, and the depreciation expense? Okay.
Minus,
Okay,
the original cost, 10,000,
Mm-hmm.
minus the salvage
Mhm.
value, gives you 7,500.
Good. All right. What else?
And the depreciation rate, 1 divided by 5
Mm-hmm.
times 7,500.
Okay, that's the depreciation. Mm-hmm.
That'll give you 1,500. And seeing that's the first year, that's the same thing. And then for book value, minus the 10,000.
Okay, you gotta stop there because your depreciation expense is wrong. How old is the asset?
It's only 2 months old.
Correct.
exactly.
2 months old.
Mm-hmm. So how do you adjust it?
2 months out of 12 months is 1/6.
Mhm.
Or, let's see.
0.16666666.
Not 0.166666.
1 divided by. So 0.16. Do we round it
7.
now?
I think what you could do that's easiest is you go ahead and calculate the depreciation expense, and then once you've done that, just divide the entire thing by 6.
By 1/5?
By 6.
Or 1/6? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so 1,500 divided by 6. I got 250.
Okay, so here I recognize that I solved it the way it is, right? However, I recognize that the first year is not going to be for the full 1,500. What's going to happen is I'm going to recalculate that, and I'm going to divide it by 2 out of 12, which is 1/6. So if I were to divide it by 6, I get a total of $250 for my first year, and that is correct. All right, so then that's okay. So okay, I didn't solve for the rest. I should have solved for the rest, but yes. So the depreciation expense for the first year with this asset is going to be for $250. So let's go ahead and journalize that.
Depreciation expense.
Mhm.
Accumulated depreciation
Mhm.
expense slash machine
Mhm.
for 250.
Yes.
Debit and credit.
Good. See? Easy stuff. Okay. All right. Any questions about straight line? So again, I taught you the harder stuff first and then the easy stuff last. Okay? So that was part 3 for you. I forgot to change this. Okay, so I got to change that. It's not supposed to say chapter 9 part 4. Chapter 11.4, and this is supposed to say amortization. Okay. And so, any questions about straight line before we move on to the next section? To 11.4, okay, for amortization. The reason why I did this right after is because you'll see why, and I'll explain why. Okay. Well, first off, what the heck is amortization? Amortization, okay? Amortization is for intangible assets, okay? So depreciation is for fixed assets, right? They have physical appearance to them, while amortization is for intangible assets, okay? So things such as patents, copyrights, licenses, trademarks, legal rights, anything that you have that is going to go towards that's considered an intangible asset, right? The definition of an intangible asset is that it does not have a physical appearance. It's in other terms, it serves as an invisible item to you, but you own it. And in most cases, all of these will be in other forms of paper, okay? But what it actually does for you is a lot, okay? So, for example, patents protect your ideas, copyrights protect your materials, anything like that. Trademarks, if you have a logo, anybody that uses the exact logo or anything, you can get money for that.
Is there a reason why mortgages aren't on the amortization list?
I'm sorry?
Mortgages. A lot of when I learned amortization before, it was all about mortgages. Now it's flipped.
Okay. All right. Now, let me ask you a question. Are we learning about real estate or are we learning about accounting?
It was part of the accounting class.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Yeah, I took the amortization portion in an accounting class. It just told us that part of the amortization was based on the interest rate being first opposed to the principal being last. That's why I was asking.
Again, if your business is in property management, then yes, mortgages would fall under this. But this is in the business of selling products and services. Will you ever have a mortgage when you're dealing with products and services? Okay. So, yes, so again, accounting, there's a lot of ways that you can look into it, and it just depends on what area that you're focusing primarily on. And in this case, when we're learning this way of accounting, it's based on creating a business for either selling a goods or service, either manufacturing a part, or whatchamacallit, or being the wholesaler, a manufacturer, right? So in this case, yes, you can use mortgages, but the thing is, when you're dealing with that, is your service? Are you selling your homes? Then yes, if that's the core of your business, then yes, you would have that as part of your asset that you own. However, in this class, we're dealing with products and services, and the only thing I can think of that would have mortgages as any time being, is if you actually own that plot of land, or if you actually own that building that you've had, and you have to pay mortgage to it because you borrowed from the bank. Okay, again, but then it would be under that type of service or that type of asset if you actually own the building, the property, the actual plant. So again, that would be, but it's more for advanced, and on top of that, it's also primarily geared towards property management. So yes, again, so you're gonna have patents, copyrights, especially because like we're in the business of trying to sell our products, right? If you are trying to create a product that no one has before, it's best to get a patent. So then, if someone comes up with the same idea, you can go up to them and be like, "Hey, I've already came up with this idea," So Yes, so legal right issues as well as licenses. So, or if you're a franchise, you can license other companies that are not your company but want to do the same thing that you're doing but want to own it. Then that's when you can do franchises, license, kind of things like that, right? Trade secrets, they all apply under the intangible assets. Okay, so again, there's few things that are usually associated with intangible assets. So here are a few components that are a little different. Normally, its lifespan has for intangible assets is about 15 years. Now, of course, that's just a guesstimation. Obviously, that's not true for everything. I believe patents, depending on what what the patent is, it can go anywhere from 2 years to like 10 years. And then same thing with copyrights, right? If your copyrighted material is very low, no one's listening to it, no one's watching it, then you can be expected that it's very, very low. Okay, same thing with franchises. Franchises, oh, I'll give you permission to try to run your business for 2 years, but after that, if you can't make it, then, I'm gonna take back my franchising license from you. So that is one key factor, that it depends on what you're actually purchasing as far as an intangible asset. And usually the life is determined by whatever package that you bought it for. Like again, if I wanted to buy a warranty would be an intangible asset, right? If I said I want to buy something that's to secure my stuff, so I buy a warranty, and usually warranties they last up to like 2 to 3 years. Okay, perfect example there. All right, typically, intangible assets have no salvage value. Reason being is you have to usually renew it at the end of the year, so they don't have a salvage value. You can't sell. I mean, you can sell it, but the thing is, when you're selling it, it's basically you just repurchasing to have ownership for it. Okay, so there is no salvage value to it. And then again, and it must be renewed at the end of its life. So that's why it doesn't have a salvage value, because usually these things, they do have a value to it. Let's say, for example, I want to buy Starbucks tray because I want to know how they make their frappuccinos. I would just have to buy and purchase the license for it, and it expires within a given year. So yes, it does have a value to it, but it doesn't have a remaining after it's at the end of its life. All right, so that is amortization for you. And guess what? The way you calculate amortization is identical to straight line. So if you know straight line, you know amortization. Okay, so again, you're going to spread the cost amongst its entire life evenly. So for example, let's go ahead. Example, you purchased a $20,000 patent, okay, on one of your what does that say? Yeah, prototypes. Yeah, I have not looked at that word for a long time. On one of your prototype toys, okay. That you sell in your store. Okay, so that means it's worth a lot of money. Okay, and you bought it on January 5th. Okay, so beginning of the year. Okay, assume its patent is good for 15 years. Okay, so record the amortization for the first year. Okay, so a few things that we need to know. Same thing. The 5 components are the same except for the last one. No. You have 3 components you need, right? Because you already know amortization only has one method. There's only amortization, and it follows straight line. There is no salvage value, so that only eliminates 2 components out of the 5 components that we learned. All you need to know is the cost of the asset.
So it would be the
20,000, because there's no salvage value. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so we got we got the cost of the asset, we got the life of it, and when did you put it into service. Okay, so yes, so I don't know if I. Okay, yes. So because it's utilizing straight line, I just left the same exact formulas in there, just so that you don't get confused, because it's essentially the same as straight line. So if you memorize straight line, I want you to keep the same concept with you. So I didn't change the words or anything like that. It is more or less, instead of saying depreciation, you just put amortization. But for the sake of this exact problem, I don't want you to get confused. I want you to know that it's the same thing as straight line. So let's go ahead and figure out what the depreciation basis is for amortization.
Okay, the rate. Oh, I've got 6.667.
Yes.
Oh, that's what you got too?
Mm-hmm. Because it's one. It's one.
Sure,
Mm-hmm.
right.
It's one. It's 1 out of 15. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Okay. So it's about roughly 7%.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
1,000.
sorry.
$1,333 and no, 1335.54. How's that?
What number is that number?
133,554.
No, I did not get that.
I got 133. I've got 13. 13334.
Yes. Okay. You should be getting 3, right? Because it's the number that you had was
Oh,
ongoing. Unless you rounded off early, then you would get a little slightly different answer. Okay.
yeah, I didn't have that .06. I had just .6.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, right. Mm-hmm.
So,
That's what I did wrong, huh?
okay. So again, and if you solve for one, it's going to be identical throughout its life. So that means every year when you amortize this specific item, it's always going to be amortized for 1,033.33 every year. Okay, until you reach the end, obviously it's going to be different. It's going to be whatever remaining amount it
Yes.
is. Okay, so because this asset has a life of 15 years, that's what you're going to use. And yes, how you journalize it is identical, except instead of using depreciation, you're going to use the word amortization. So everything is identical
Yes.
except for the wording. Okay.
Right,
Oh,
because
okay.
these are intangible.
Amortization.
Right.
All right. So for the sake of this class, I don't have like specific numbers unless it's given to you. So again, for this class, all I really want you to know is just understand that for amortization, it's usually 15 years. Obviously, I know in reality it's not 15, but for this class, just know it as 15 years. Okay. Again,
Why 15?
I don't have a clue, but that's usually the longevity of how long a patent should last you. It should definitely last you for like years, but I know today's society, everybody wants to be in on it, everyone wants to release their patent. So, it really depends. I know for movies, it is like for example, the maker of the movie, they can copyright it for as long as up to 50 years. So for example, Disney,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I bet you they have their patents for more than 50 years.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think so.
and of course they can license it, like saying, "Oh, yes, I'll let you use my property. I can license you, and so you guys can, use my logo to print on other things, but I better get a profit for it." So that's what they do for licenses. Like you're paying Disney to use their whatever princess, so you can put that on your items. Okay, So
And so they'll, at the end of like 15 years, they'll reapply for a patent again
yes,
or license
yes.
again.
So for Disney, I'm pretty sure they're solid for 50 years. I mean, you know, they just had their 50 anniversary like what, 10 years ago. Something like that. But yeah, things like that. Like so, but for most licenses, if it's like a temporary project, usually they license you for like at least 1 or 2 years. They're not gonna let you sell the same product for over 5 years using the same icon. So yeah, so that's usually it. And usually, if you want to, let's say I'm done with this Disney princess, I want a license for another one, then you have to keep paying for that license. So every detail or every copyright image, whatever it is, if it's owned by someone else, you just have to pay into it. So let's say I want to work with Starbucks and feature that this one product of mine has Starbucks. I have to pay them for however long I can sell that product for. So yes, yes. And then some companies work deals with you saying, "Oh, yes, I can let you borrow my logo for like and you can utilize any image you want to use and I'll give you 5 years to do it." Then you have to pay me like it's a huge number. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
because like I said, if Disney, you know how they're really big on, if you're gonna sell merch in your store, okay, well I'm gonna charge you for every princess that you use. So think about it, because why?
Uh-huh.
That's the money right there. Why would I license you so cheap to let you have all my characters when I can charge you each one for each one? So remember, business is business, But yes, typically,
Well, that's how they make a lot of
yes. So
money.
typically, license and patents, so they should be renewed. And 15 is just a guesstimation of roughly an average of all the patents and all the licenses combined. So, again, if it's specified, then go with a specified number. If it's not, just assume it's 15 years. Okay. Chapter review. Again, we just looked at straight line, and that's the only thing that you need to know. Because amortization just means you are amortizing intangible assets, and that's all you need to know because amortization falls under the same. Right, and that is it for today's